the South Korean VR reunion, when goodbye isn't final. In 2020, the line between grief and simulation was erased, in a digital reunion between a mother and her deceased daughter. This wasn't fiction, it was broadcast worldwide. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Grief Tech series, where we decode the intersection of technology, mourning, and meaning. In today's video, we're starting with the moment that broke the internet, and quietly broke a psychological threshold. This is the story of a South Korean mother, a virtual reality simulation, and the digital resurrection of a 7-year-old girl named Nayeon. Let's set the stage. In 2016, Jang Ji-sung lost her daughter, Nayeon, to a rare and incurable disease. Nayeon was just 7 years old. Her death devastated the family, and like most parents who bury a child, Jang's grief was indescribable. But in 2020, 4 years after her daughter's passing, Jang agreed to participate in a documentary experiment titled Meeting You, which would leverage virtual reality to digitally reconstruct her daughter and allow them to meet again in a simulated environment. It was not a game. It was not abstract. It was a full-on reunion, built using voice samples, photos, motion capture of a child actor, and advanced animation. The virtual reality scenario took place in a digitally rendered park, with music, sound, and lifelike behavior. Wearing VR goggles and haptic gloves, Jang was able to see and touch her daughter again. Millions watched the video. The moment Nayeon appeared, Jang gasped, broke down, and reached forward. "I missed you so much," she said. The avatar responded with, "Mom, where have you been?" The simulation had even included pre-programmed interactions, a birthday cake, playful dialogue, and the sound of Nayeon's voice, recreated from prior recordings and enhanced with AI. The video went viral. People cried, people celebrated, and people questioned, is this healing or haunting? Let's unpack the emotional layers. On one hand, it's easy to see the appeal. Grief is brutal. Sudden loss creates trauma, especially when there's no closure. Technology that offers one more moment, one last goodbye, one final hug, feels like a miracle. A gift. Especially for parents who never got to say goodbye. But is it a gift, or is it a suspension of grief's natural process? Because grief, as painful as it is, has a purpose. It moves us. It transforms us. It changes how we love, how we live, how we remember. When we try to interrupt or bypass that process with simulation, what are we really doing? Are we healing, or are we pausing pain in a way that prevents growth? Let's talk about psychological closure. In traditional mourning, the mind processes absence. It reassigns meaning. It reconciles the presence of someone loved with the finality of their loss. This is done through ritual, time, expression, memory, and eventually, acceptance. But in the South Korean VR example, there was no real finality. Jang knew it wasn't real, but her body didn't. Her tears, her reactions, her grief response were raw and real. Her nervous system didn't care that it was a simulation. That's the double bind of immersive technology. Your mind may know it's not real, but your biology responds as if it is. This opens the door to emotional confusion. You feel like you've reunited, but you haven't. You've interacted, but you haven't. It's a one-sided illusion, curated by engineers and designed for performance. And while the short-term effect might feel comforting, the long-term consequences are unknown. Will it delay healing? Will it re-traumatize? Will it create dependence? Let's ask another question. Who is responsible for the version of the deceased that shows up in the simulation? Because the Nayeon that appeared wasn't really Nayeon. It was an approximation, a digital construct based on input data and modeling. That raises an ethical concern. Whose version of the dead is being recreated? Is it the mother's memory? The tech company's composite? A child actor's interpretation? And if we get to decide who the dead become, are we honoring them or projecting ourselves onto them? This brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all: consent. Nayeon was 7 years old. She did not consent to be resurrected as a digital avatar. She didn't approve the use of her face, voice, or personality. Her likeness was reanimated, not by her choice, but by her mother's love. But love, as powerful as it is, doesn't erase the complexity of posthumous autonomy. What happens when grief overrides consent? When we bring someone back, not because they asked to return, but because we couldn't let go? This is not a rare scenario. As grief tech expands, more families are uploading, cloning, and resurrecting loved ones using AI. Photos, voice notes, videos, social media posts, all are being fed into algorithms to build talking memories. The emotional intent is pure, but the psychological implications are murky. You are not just remembering the dead, you're engaging them, conversing, experiencing new moments. But are those moments shared, or are they scripted? Let's return to Jang's experience. At the end of the VR simulation, the avatar of Nayeon lay down to sleep. She said goodbye, a symbolic moment of closure, staged for the documentary. But was it enough? After such an intense digital encounter, can grief truly resolve? Or does it now carry a new layer of longing, The knowledge that you could go back in, plug in, and see them again. This is where the technology becomes addictive. Some grief tech startups now offer monthly interactions, custom memories, and update packages for digital avatars. You don't just talk to the dead once, you can schedule them in. But what does that do to the living? In trauma therapy, there's a concept called re-exposure, the repeated resurfacing of loss without resolution. It traps people in loops. Some psychologists worry that grief tech is now creating that loop on demand, especially for those who never got closure in the first place. Let's talk about children. What happens when a child loses a parent and instead of grieving, they get an AI replica? A voice that says, "I love you," a hologram that reads bedtime stories, a chatbot that gives life advice. The child doesn't understand simulation. To them, mommy is still here. But what are we teaching them about death? About boundaries? About identity? About what's real? Grief tech isn't just changing how we mourn, it's changing how we define presence. The South Korean VR reunion was one of the first public demonstrations of what's possible, but it won't be the last. Studios in Los Angeles, Dubai, and Shanghai are already developing grief immersion chambers, environments where you can visit simulated ancestors, sit beside loved ones, or even attend digital funerals in the metaverse. But the question remains, what does that do to the soul? In spiritual traditions around the world, death is not just an end, it's a passage, a process, a sacred transition. And when we interrupt that journey by keeping someone alive in the digital plane, are we supporting their soul? Or are we anchoring it to our own unresolved sorrow? This is not a condemnation of the South Korean reunion. It was courageous, it was moving, and it opened the door to a conversation the world needs to have. But now that the door is open, we must walk through it with clarity. Here are the real questions grief tech forces us to ask. What is a healthy goodbye? What rights do the dead have? Who curates their memory? And when do we, the living, finally let go? Grief tech is here. It's not going away. But as we embrace its tools, we must not forget the sacred role of endings. Because sometimes, closure is not the enemy. It's the beginning of healing. Hi, I am Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and SOS, School of Soul has a brand new series, the AI and Future Technology series. Look, you know the world is changing. And no, it's not going back to normal. Normal is over, and what's coming next is beyond anything we were prepared for. The School of Soul, AI and Future Technology series includes 319 videos on 1. The Download Society, How Data Has Replaced Destiny. 2. Predictive Future. Your next moves aren't random, they're forecasted. 3. Social Credit Systems. The behavioral economy now governs access. 4. Hive Mind. Synthetic telepathy and collective algorithmic control. 5. Nanobots inside you. Medical, military, and programmable intrusions. 6. Grief Tech. AI-fueled digital resurrection and simulated comfort. 7. Uploading your mind, consciousness transfer, and data-based identity. 8. Deep fakes plus AI clones. The replication of reality and identity theft. 9. Quantum humans, the merger of biology with quantum systems. 10. Digital afterlife, where your data goes when you die. 11. Resurrection science, reviving life through synthetic methods. 12. Immortal science, the end of death as we know it. 13. Longevity science, gene editing, anti-aging, and bio-upgrades. 14. Designer babies, engineered perfection before birth. 15. Artificial wombs, birth decoupled from the female body. 16. 3D printing, printing organs, limbs, and even humans. 17. The humanoid era, the rise of synthetic beings among us. 18. Legacy humans, the slow phase-out of unmodified analog people. 19. Smart cities, algorithmic environments that watch and decide. 20. Cloud-based societies, citizenship without borders or bodies. 21. Hackable humans, emotion, memory, and behavior under code. 22. Biometric scanning, your body is your password and your prison. 23. Sex tech, intimacy reprogrammed by machines. 24. Extinction of gender, fluidity, deletion, and design of identity. Every topic is fully explored with real-world technologies, patents, case studies, ethical analysis, and future forecasts. These aren't someday discussions. This is already happening. Join the SOS School of Soul Vault to overstand the future before it's implemented on you.